My name is Rob Kyle. I'm CEO and co-founder of Enter Allies, and this is Dave Hedinger with Modally.
Hey, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are.
And so we appreciate everyone joining us today. And why don't we just get right into this? Next. So obviously, everything with COVID has put a lot of financial pressure on many operators, and we wanted to take the context of where does that situate people from a financial perspective, and there's so much pressure in areas where revenue is soft to where am I going to get a way to recover that on my expenses. And the first place people look is always around the people expenses, but there's only so far you can go with that. And with the downward pressure on NOIs, there's really a whole area that is often overlooked, and it's around energy and maintenance, specifically for HVAC, where you have climate control locations. And that's a low-hanging fruit. And it turns out, even just for an energy bill, a typical energy bill for a self-storage operator, HVAC is going to be 50 to 70% of those costs. So that's an area where we want to talk about today. And let me start with that. So Dave, next. So historically, for operators to try and address their energy costs and their maintenance costs for HVAC, your status quo is pretty straightforward. You have thermostats, you have your HVAC rooftop units. There's not a lot of automation. There's no data. You really have no way to know remotely how your thermostats are set, if they're set properly to the set points that you wanted them to be. If you're selling this as a service with a higher revenue amount, there's no way to verify that you're actually doing the proper settings without visiting the site. And if you've got a lot of sites, that's a lot of effort to just verify, do you have the right settings? At the same time, there's no way to know if you're actually managing your energy costs smartly. And there's also really no visibility if you're having problems with HVAC performance. It's a surprise when things break. And the alternative has been to spend a lot of money on industrial control type systems, which have a lot of hardware. And so Enter Allies came up with a different approach. Dave, next. And we came up with something we've coined as a software-centric solution. And it's a very different way to help self-storage operators and our other customers in other sectors, for example, in retail and restaurant chains, to remotely control their HVAC systems with software coupled with a set of services, and the combination allows us to deliver very fast payback from an economic standpoint, and also do a lot better in terms of the value add than the alternatives. So why don't we take a look at that? Next slide. The idea is a very simple one. Today you have thermostats controlling your HVAC units, and what Enter Allies does is we work with our partners, very often it would be Modally, to go to your sites, and we'll upgrade the thermostats to a Wi-Fi enabled thermostat that we can control through the cloud. Next. And once we have that connectivity, that allows us and that allows you to see everything that's going on through our virtual energy manager platform. This is a web-based platform, software platform application. It's a responsive design, so you can see this from your smartphone or your tablet or your computer. You don't need to download a native app. And let's take a look a little bit bigger screen. Next. What this gives you is immediate remote centralized control of all of your thermostats, immediate visibility to what is happening with all of your HVAC units that are being controlled by those thermostats. And it's a night and day change from having no visibility. So we're tracking data on a every 10-minute basis on what's happening to determine how well your HVAC units are performing, and also to ensure that the schedules that are in place are the right schedules during the working hours, during the non-working hours, and so on. And it's scalable from just a few sites up to hundreds or thousands of sites. It's scalable within a given location for just one rooftop unit to could be tens. So it's very flexible, designed that way. So I want to go to the next slide. And we're really trying to solve three major problems. One is we understand that today there's really no way to have any control over your HVAC energy costs because there's no data to help you do that. Secondly, there's no data to really understand the state of your HVAC systems and whether they're performing properly. And thirdly, nobody really has the staff to manage all this stuff. And so what we built is a solution. Go to the build. Firstly, that saves HVAC energy savings by 20 to 30% a year. We remotely control and download schedules and simplify all the software to make sure all of this is intact. We can lock down your thermostats partially or fully. There's a lot of details to this, which I won't go into right here, but I'm happy to answer any questions about that, as well as you can come to our exhibitor booth later today for more info. Second, next. On the predictive maintenance is a key area where we can add a lot of value, and this is part of our collaboration with Modally, where we'll get an early visibility to problems that you're having on your HVAC units, and then we can collaborate with a company who has a whole network of service technicians like Modally to make sure that we're sending them out when it makes sense, but not unnecessarily. And then thirdly, next, we help provide a lot of value on a whole range of services so that you don't have to bring to bear your staff to worry about this. We can take care of it for you. And then finally, there's also, from a sustainability standpoint, we're reducing your HVAC usage means we're reducing your carbon footprint. So let's go to the next slide. There's a lot of examples we have of how we do and the results that we've delivered, anywhere from 25% and upwards of savings across the country in many different geographical locations. The process is really to control your thermostats. We can precondition to make sure that locations are comfortable before the working hours. But by having that remote control, this means you don't need to worry about people touching your thermostats and how that's going to operate. We take all that guesswork and people aspect out of it. Go on to the next slide. Big area to understand about your maintenance costs is that a small percentage of your visits will translate into a huge bulk of your actual costs. These are where you have these catastrophic outages. So having a predictive maintenance early visibility to where you can detect outages well before you have a catastrophic outage, our ability to do that with very high accuracy, 90% plus accuracy, means you now have visibility to send out somebody to do a fix well before there's a catastrophic outage. You can do it on a planned basis where the labor costs are lower instead of spending on an urgent basis. And it translates into direct savings. Next slide. HVAC management is a huge headache for most operators. And so we've designed this suite of services, everything from onboarding to our customer support to proactively helping to manage the services to doing energy services measurement and verification to help our customers so that they don't have to worry about doing all these things. Last slide. Next. And so what this translates into is a very compelling return on investment. And this is just an example. Everybody's situation is going to be different. We're showing an example here if you had just one site, what the economics might look like. But it shows a return of 2 to 1 from that investment just on the very first year. And then it's way better even on later years because you don't have that initial cost of installing your thermostats. And so the payback in this case is 6 months. There's a lot of details here I'd be happy to go through with anybody offline, but suffice it to say, the biggest part of the savings is on energy. And by taking control and having visibility and remotely controlling your HVAC, you can get these savings, and it's low-hanging fruit. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Dave.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. And before I dive in, thank you to Janice, Ian, Jessica, everyone at SBOA for finding a way to get us all together in the current environment we're living in. Uh, Modally is an HVAC company based out of Denver, Colorado. Uh, uh, we're really seen as a technology company at heart. We were purchased by Goodman and Daikin Manufacturing back in 2017 with really their approach of going direct to owners and operators. Most of you are probably familiar with the standard two-step distribution model in HVAC. What is unique about that is that's not really how most of the world transacts HVAC. Everything is done direct from consumer to manufacturer. So Daikin, being a Japanese company, really has had this model and looked at the United States as kind of a backward idea, and that's kind of where we came about. As a technology / manufacturer, we have a factory in Houston, Texas. It's actually the third largest factory in the United States. Everything we make is made here in the United States, which is something we've been very proud of for years. But we're finding, especially here in 2020, this is has become very valuable as we kind of sort through all the nuances that we're working through in the current environment. As for many of you, I'm sure 2020 has been one of those years that you're just trying to figure out what side is up and what side is down. In April, we had to shut down our factory, as along with a lot of the other major manufacturers. During those 2 weeks we were shut down, we completely redesigned our manufacturer lines to CDC guidelines, and we're up and back and running in about 3 weeks, which was a really great thing. What we have found this year is that there's a big supply issue with HVAC equipment from just other manufacturers relying on imports and assembling inside the United States. So we actually have expanded our manufacturing floor again as of this week to crank out about 10,000 systems per week, just to help keep up with the demand that we're seeing in the United States market. As I mentioned, we are really a technology company at heart, and our model is really to bring factory direct equipment to owners and operators such as yourselves through various distribution networks. So we have our own company-owned distribution as Goodman, and then we also have third-party distributors such as Ferguson, Johnstone, Williams, just depending on the area you're in. And we have great relationships with these distributors that, since we move so much product, they allow us to move the product at our cost, really providing you with a factory direct price on the equipment. The labor side is somewhat like an Uber model. We have over 2,400 authorized techs in our network that vary in license and specific trade types. But it really does work like Uber. We have preset labor rates for different actions. So, whatever the scope is, as a customer, you're not really being blindsided by a price. These labor rates are fair market value based off research we've done. And what you'll find usually between labor and equipment together, savings can be anywhere from about 10 to 20%, just depending on what current relationships you have today. Modally recognizes that HVAC needs to be taken on a one-off by one-off basis. Depending on the property, you have facilities in different geographic areas, as well as different system types that have different needs. Because of that, we tend to be very flexible in how we approach working with our customers. This can be done at a property or across a portfolio. And there's a handful of items that we're able to provide. As I mentioned, we are a technology company at heart. One of the items you'll see here to the left is asset tagging. We've developed a mobile app to go through and scan data plates to give you really a portfolio view of what the condition of your assets look like, so that you can make educated decisions proactively to repairing or replacing those. As well as, it's been great working with the SBOA team here. They are very technology forward thinking. And through that relationship, we've been working with Rob here at Enter Allies and working together a program with their software where Modally can help install their thermostats and then be dispatched for any pre-warned item ahead of time. So those are some of the technology items that we're focusing on. But in the middle of summer, what we find is customers are just trying to keep their hair from not being on fire. Rob had a quote up there that HVAC issues are very painful, and we have a few ways of working through that. You'll see here there's a direct service and a direct supply, and what this allows you to do is purchase based off the needs of that site. If you have a contractor that you've worked with for years and they're a great company and you're just looking for equipment, you have the ability to purchase equipment factory direct, which we call our direct supply model. So you can either order it for your technician, or we can set the technician up under your account without exposing pricing for them to just purchase upon your needs. If you have a property that you don't have a great contractor or a new property that you're not really familiar with, we have the ability to do the full turnkey service from diagnostics to repairs to replacements. And that's what we call our direct service, where we would be sending out one of our subcontractors. All these jobs are managed internally through our job management team to take these jobs from point A to point B. So you have a few different options, and really it's just understanding what the needs are at that site. Between direct service and direct supply, one thing we are really excited to announce, and I hope Janice is still on here, is the SBOA marketplace. So here over the next few weeks, we will be adding to the SBOA website the ability for you all to purchase HVAC equipment and parts. So there's kind of a quick screenshot of it here. You'll see you can actually dial into products and services if you know what you need, or we've got a hot button here if you just got an HVAC system down and you're not sure what needs to happen. It's kind of a fast path of, hey, I need somebody out to take a look at this. There's a few screenshots here that you'll see. We've tried to make this as easy as possible for you all to really select the equipment type you need. I understand that HVAC can be intimidating to some of you. So in this, you'll see contact information for our full sales team. If you're not sure what you need, feel free to reach out to us. We can do full matchups and put you in a right direction. I think the good item is if you do select the wrong equipment type, it's not a problem. Once you order a system for install, we'll send our technicians out there to just verify what you selected is correct. And that way they're not showing up on site with all this equipment ready to go and, oh no, this is incorrect. So, we'll be able to take you through that full process. And it's something we're really excited for. Janice and I have been working on this for a few months. And it's kind of unique timing coming out in the summer. So Janice, I saw you hopped on. Any question or any items from you on this? Oh, I think you're on.
We're actually launching a new website for SBOA, and in that SBOA website, you'll have access to the e-store to buy the Modally products, as well as a few other vendors. So we're really excited to launch that website.
Awesome. And that's pretty much all we had today. So I will open it up for questions for Rob and I. You can put them in the chat here, or if you want to voice up, feel free to join the video conference.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in real quick, Dave. If anyone wants to ask them a live question, you'll see at the top of the video next to recording, it says there's 5 of 20 spaces available. So there's 15 current spaces available. You can just hit the share audio and webcam, and then Dave would be able to let you in to answer and ask live questions with them. Anybody want to join?
I have a comment related to Modally. It's a business opportunity to, purchase HVAC equipment, but it's also a consumer product as well. So whether your employees yourselves need additional HVAC equipment or replacement of equipment, you can actually get that from Modally Direct. They deal with residential and commercial.
Yep, that is a good point. We've loaded enough system types to really cover a broad range from residential to light commercial. So even if this is not for one of your facilities but for one of your personal properties, you are able to purchase right through this as well.
Rob, can you share one of your experiences related to the industry or an industry that you see the spend reduction as an example for us?
Sure, Janice, thanks, and thanks again for having this whole session. It's been very interesting for us. Dave, if you wouldn't mind to show slide number 6 in the deck, and I can speak to that. And what I would speak to there you go. Nope.
This one or
no?
I had it. Where was it? This one.
There you go. So NRLS has done a lot of work with a number of retail chains and restaurant chains, and we've learned a lot from these experiences and the importance of trying to balance the combination of energy savings with the maintenance challenges, as well as with even comfort. And certainly, if you have employees on site and in the office space, you want to make sure that they're comfortable. But for the areas where you may not have as many employees there, one of the things that we're able to do is we can set specific schedules that align to what you're trying to achieve. Let's say in a climate controlled area may be very different than what you might do in the front office. And we can customize the settings, the set points in each of those different thermostats. And we can do that during the day. We can do that in the evening. So it's in the evening when you don't have, when people aren't allowed access to your location, for example. And I've looked around in, for example, the Northern California area, the typical range of hours is, off by 7 or 8 p.m., maybe 10 p.m. But after hours, there's really no reason to be air conditioning during the summer. And there's no one that's coming, and to the extent that you have air conditioning running, you're really just wasting energy. And so wasting energy translates directly to the bottom line. And so a lot of what we do and what we've done in let's say a restaurant where they're closed in the evening, or a retail store where they're closed in the evening, is turning that off and making sure that it's turned off consistently, even while allowing some local control if you need to on a given day for whatever the situation may be. It goes back to being automated so that and you have peace of mind to know that you're not air conditioning a location unnecessarily. And if you have 5, 6, 8 rooftop units in a location and you have 50 locations, that's a lot of rooftop units that you're using unnecessary air conditioning for. And the problem without a system like ours is you have no way of knowing how much of that's happening. You may actually think that you have set these properly, but let's say you have an electricity outage. What typically happens is the thermostats revert to the factory default settings, which means you have no idea what that's really set at and whether that conforms to what you were, either the set points you were selling to people who wanted it climate controlled, or to what is ideal to for you to save money. With our system, you have full visibility and control with that, and we can precondition in the morning. We can schedule that. So if let's say you open at 8 a.m. for people who can come to your location, we can precondition that at 7 a.m. And all of that can be scheduled and automated. We can accommodate if you have special times, whether it's holiday or different times, for different reasons that you need to give people access, or maybe there's a special circumstance. All of that can be remotely controlled and modified. You would have access to that, and we can actually help you manage that, so you don't have to worry about having to train up a big staff to do that. This all translates into savings anywhere from, you see the examples, 25 up to almost 60% of savings. So one example with a retail operator that we work with, this was locations in Pennsylvania, so mid-Atlantic, and year over year, we're measuring before we arrived and then after we arrived, and we do an analytical view of this, and we quantify what the savings were, and we normalize by weather the year before and the year after. And so we can look objectively whether the usage went down and by how much. And that's what we're really capturing, is that level of savings is significant in terms of the usage reduction, having these kinds of remotely automated controls.
How has COVID-19 affected your businesses?
Dave, why don't you take that?
Yeah, I think I spoke to a little bit. It's interesting. HVAC systems don't really care about a pandemic. If they feel like dying, they're gonna die. So, and it's been interesting. We saw an influx from more of our single family homes early March, which we don't typically see an influx until about late May. Really, the biggest item has been inventory this summer. There's been an increase in demand due to facilities and people running systems earlier. And as I mentioned, a lot of the factories are pretty far behind on keeping up with the schedule. So, that's been probably the hardest issue. As I mentioned, our factory has been on since end of April. We were only down for about 3 weeks. So if you are having any equipment issues, feel free to reach out to me. There are a handful that are kind of difficult to get, but overall we're in pretty good shape. That's kind of been the biggest hurdle for us, and biggest question of how do we keep the supply coming in for the demand.
Rob, have you seen a flux in business relative to the COVID-19 and people trying to save money and reduce costs in businesses?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's a lot of economic pressure on CFOs across the board in companies, and there's only so far they can go with reducing labor costs. And this is an area, energy, and specifically around HVAC, is something they can control. And it's something that is low-hanging fruit if they haven't implemented a system like this before. And many people haven't. And so this is a relatively new concept with the idea, and it's in keeping with other types of technologies through software and cloud-based software and controls, that you can use technology to remotely control something. You take out of the equation worrying about are people's hands touching a thermostat, and are they passing on germs? Do I need to be on site to make sure that I'm overseeing the thermostats are set properly? All of these kinds of issues, and this is true for the self-storage space, but it's true for retail and restaurant and so on. It is a very significant area. And so one of the things we were able to do for our customers when the lockdowns first started is many customers had to change their hours. Some had to shut down their locations entirely. And because of the flexibility of our software, and the tools we've designed, we can enable them to do those changes very quickly and be able to respond and adapt to that circumstances. And then as the lockdown started to lighten up and hours changed, or a dining room which had been shut down before is now opened, or a restaurant which was entirely shut down is now open, we can assist our customers to get that up and running immediately, because again, everything is remotely controlled through our software. So that flexibility is translated into a tremendous level of interest in being able to do this. And I think I would add that we're now in a climate of activism, and I use the word climate, I guess, in quotes. There's a spirit of activism right now that is pervasive throughout the country. And one of the stories that had been pervasive probably a year ago, maybe 9 months ago, was around climate change. And that spirit of activism around climate change is very likely to put a lot more scrutiny on businesses on how proactive they're being in dealing with their energy consumption. And I would expect, based on things I'm hearing and just the general political trends in our country, that trend is not going away. It's going to increase significantly. And so one thing we like to share with our customers is, if you're using our system, we have you covered, because we can quantify the energy usage savings into carbon footprint impact and be able to enable that so you can showcase you're ahead of the game. If you're not doing this today, it's probably wise to start thinking about how is this going to come at my doorstep and how can I get ahead of it? Because with the NRLI system, it's a very low cost system, but it's also a way to get ahead of how are you addressing climate change with a tangible impact and at the same time saving money. So it's good for your bottom line and it's good for you to demonstrate that that your proactive position on the environment.
Great, you guys, we've run over a little bit. So if you want to reach out to Rob at InterAllies or Dave from Modally, you can see them in the exhibitor hall. We're moving over to the general session now. Thank you, everyone. On behalf of
Thanks,
SBOA,
everyone.
we appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Please reach out to us.